أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. اللهم لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enable us to learn His deen, apply it successfully, show us the truth as truth, and enable us to follow it, and give us the tawfiq and the sadat to follow it, and show us falsehood as falsehood, and give us the protection from falsehood. Allahumma ameen. My respected brothers and sisters, it's incredible how speedy the events are. This one is born, this one is ill, this one dies, this one dies. It's subhanAllah, everything just is happening so quickly, and that shows clearly, according to the authentic hadith of Prophet ﷺ, that we are at the end of time. Tasara az-zaman. That when you see that there is no barakah in time anymore, and then the week begins and it ends, and you're like, where did it go? The month, the year, so on and so forth. And the kids, the babies that I used to know yesterday, I was at an event, and I'm looking at them as like they all are like, mashallah, grown-ups, and they're in their 20s and they're in universities, and some like mid to late 20s. So wow, where did all this time go? Things just happen so quickly, subhanAllah. Al-Fasl al-Awwal, first we talk about Hajj and Umrah, and just like Salah, it has its conditions, it has its pillars, it has its wajibat, it has its sunnah. So is Hajj, it has its conditions, it has its arkan, okay, which means Hajj is no good without it. Just like Hajj is Salah is no good without the rukn, right? The pillar. It has its wajibat. If you violate any of the wajibat, then you have to, ransom yourself from that. And it has its sunnah to make your Hajj more complete and, bring you closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and make it more acceptable. By definition, Hajj is to basically having the intention to go and perform the ritualistic aspect of Hajj every step of the way when it comes to, tawaf and sa'i and mabit fi Mina and Muzdalifah, right? Staying in Mina and Muzdalifah and throwing the jamarat and all of that. That's your intention. And of course, we recall here the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam and Ismail, وَإِذْ يَرْفَعُ إِبْرَاهِيمُ الْقَوَاعِدَ مِنَ الْبَيْتِ وَإِسْمَاعِيلُ رَبَّنَا تَقَبَّلْ مِنَّا إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands Ibrahim, وَأَذِّنْ فِي النَّاسِ بِالْحَجِّ يَأْتُوكَ رِجَالًا وَعَلَى كُلِّ ضَامِرٍ يَأْتِيكَ مِنْ كُلِّ فَجٍّ عَمِيقٍ. Meaning that call the adhan, and just try to put yourself in the midst of the desert. There was nothing. You go there now, the buildings and the hotels and the this and that. At that point, there was only the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and nothing else. And then Ibrahim alayhi salam stands on a mountain in the midst of the desert. Nobody to be seen, nobody to be heard, and he's calling for Hajj. And what is the response? We see 2, 3, 4, 5 million people going for Hajj. That's in the Hajj season, for Umrah and Hajj every single year. And of course, millions and millions go for Umrah throughout the entire year. And that is the tawfiq from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that is the response to the call of Ibrahim alayhi salam, وَأَذِّنْ فِي النَّاسِ بِالْحَجِّ. Okay? And يَأْتُوكَ رِجَالًا وَعَلَى كُلِّ سَبِيلٍ. They come to you on foot, and they come to you, riding their, there used to be horses and, camels, and now they ride in their cars and their buses and their ships and their airplanes and all of that. So, subhanAllah, this is the barakah of the dua, of Ibrahim alayhi salam. Of course, there is, just like there's certain time to perform the Hajj, there's certain place to perform the Hajj, there's also certain time to perform the Hajj. Al-Hajj ashhurun ma'lumat. What are the months of Hajj? Shawwal, Dhul Qa'dah. Some scholars say the first 10 days of Dhul Hijjah, some say the entire month of Dhul Hijjah. Right? Because why would you limit it in the first 10 days of Dhul Hijjah? We have Ayyam al-Tashriq, which is the 11th, 12th, and 13th, right? Yeah. Okay. العمرة التعبد إلى الله عز وجل بالطواف بالبيت والسعي بين الصفا والمروة والتحلل منها بالحلق والتقصير. Umrah is very short and simple, plain and sweet. Short and sweet. It just basically, you put on your ihram, okay, لبيك اللهم عمرة. And by the way, when we say labbaik Allahumma Hajj or labbaik Allahumma Umrah, right? We are not declaring the intention. We are responding to the call of Ibrahim alayhi salam. We're responding to the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when somebody, for example, calls you and you walk into them and you say labbaik, you didn't have to say labbaik because you're coming to them, right? But when you say labbaik, it's like, I'm responding to your call. So the intention in every ibadah, the place of the intention is the heart. We do not pronounce the intention. So this is not, you're not pronouncing the intention, you are saying, oh Allah, labbaik, I come to you, I respond to your call. I respond to the call of Ibrahim alayhi salam. Okay? Of course, when we talk about the Umrah, like we said, it's very simple. You do your tawaf, you do your sa'i, and then, it is the sunnah to pray a couple of rak'ahs behind Maqam Ibrahim alayhi salam, and to drink from Zamzam water, and all of that, and to, do tahallul, either by shaving the head or trimming it. But you have to trim from everywhere, right? For a woman, she will take just basically a small part of the back of her hair, and that's it. That is tahallul for her. Okay, now we talk about the importance of Hajj. First and foremost, Hajj is a pillar of Islam. We learn that from the Quran, and we learn that from the Sunnah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran says, وَلِلَّهِ عَلَى النَّاسِ حِجُّ الْبَيْتِ مَنِ اسْتَطَاعَ إِلَيْهِ سَبِيلًا. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decreed that you perform the Hajj for who? لِمَنِ اسْتَطَاعَ إِلَيْهِ سَبِيلًا. For those who have the ability to go. We're going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about the concept of istita'a. What does that mean? What are the conditions? What do you do if you can't? What do you do if you can't? And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَنْ كَفَرَ. Whoever disbelieves in Hajj, depicts it in the state of Islam. فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ غَنِيٌّ عَلَى الْعَالَمِينَ. In the hadith of Jibreel, the hadith of Umar ibn al-Khattab, when Jibreel alayhi salam comes, in the form of a man, wearing white garments, dark hair, and then he sits in front of the Prophet ﷺ and puts his knees against the knees of the Prophet ﷺ, and he begins to ask him a series of questions, and then he says, أخبرني عن الإسلام قال أن تشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأن محمدا رسول الله وتقيم الصلاة وتؤتي الزكاة وتحج البيت إن استطعت إليه سبيلا. So the evidence is ample in the Quran and in the Sunnah that this is a pillar, and it must be performed by those who have the ability to do so. Some of the blessings of Hajj, Al-Hajj al-Mabrur, ليس له جزاء إلا الجنة. What is a Hajj Mabrur? Hajj that is accepted to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What conditions must be met for Hajj to be accepted?
Has to do with the halal money.
You have to do halal money for everything that you're going to spend on, from transportation to eating to accommodation, right? What else? You have to know what you're doing. Just like every ibadah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not accept the ibadah that is based upon ignorance. Okay? And of course, Hajj al-Mabrur, ليس فيه أذى. There's no harm to others, there's no acts of corruption, there's no sinful behavior, particularly in Mecca. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَنْ يُرِدْ فِيهِ بِالْحَادِ الْمُضُلِّ نُذِقْهُ مِنْ عَذَابٍ شَدِيدٍ. Whoever intends or causes harm in the Haram or in Mecca or whatever, then we shall cause them to taste a severe punishment. And then Al-Hajj al-Mabrur, Jazahu al-Jannah. Al-Hajj al-Mabrur, it basically expiates all prior sins except al-Kabair. For each Kabira, you need a specific tawbah that meets the conditions. Anytime you read a hadith in the Quran or an ayah in the Quran, when it talks about the expiation of sins, Kabair are not included unless you repent from the Kabira. Specifically, meeting the conditions, seizing the act, regretting the past, resolving not to go back to it, and if it entails the rights of others, to do what? To rectify that. And if he cannot, he has the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? The Prophet ﷺ commanded us, al-mutaba'a bayn al-hajj wal-umrah. It basically keeps poverty at bay, and it keeps also sins at bay. Keeps poverty and sins. And as we know, Hajj jihad is a jihad, la shawkata fi. It is a form of jihad. Anybody who's been for Hajj here? You've been for Hajj? You've been to Hajj? Okay, anybody been to Umrah? No Hajj, no Umrah? Astaghfirullah. What are you doing, man? What are you waiting for? You've been to, yeah. So, you know, you go for Hajj and you think you're going to go there and mashallah, the spirituality is so incredibly high and everybody's going to be courteous to you, right? And everybody's going to be helpful, right? That's what happens. You get shoved and pushed around for the tawaf, for the sa'i. You know, one young boy went with his, with his parents and, and doing the sa'i. I mean, the crowd, there's no room. You're being squeezed in, right? Especially if even if it's in the winter, it's hot. Just because of the heat that's radiating from everybody's body. So when he says his dad, he goes, "Dad, my feet are not on the floor." He's been squeezed up. And you always find people who are pushing you from behind, right? And it's a jihad. But it's all part of your test. You've been invited to the house of the all generous, the all forgiving, the all great, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you need to be patient, you need to tolerate. You're one of a few. What I mean by that, you're among the minority. The majority are unable to go for Hajj. So just keep that in mind. And you're there on a mission. So don't get distracted by a lot of inconveniences. Yeah, they're gonna double book your room, trust me. That's a tradition. You're gonna see a lot of things that are just like, it's like, wow, is this Mecca? Yeah, this is Mecca. But people have changed. Yes, this is Medina, but people have changed. Make sense? Yeah. If you're not going with a group, you may find yourself that your reservation has been canceled. So don't panic. Yeah. I'm not saying this to discourage you. I'm saying this to set your expectations right. I don't want you going there and then it's a shock. Every step of the way it's a stressful experience. No. That should not be the case. Okay? It's a hardship. It's a jihad. It is a jihad. Umrah in Ramadan is equivalent to Hajj. With who? Ma Rasulullah. However, some scholars are actually of the opinion that Umrah in Shawwal and Dhul Qa'dah is better than Umrah in Ramadan. So don't be surprised if you hear something like this. Okay? Because هذه أشهر الأشهر الحرم الأربعة. So Shawwal is شهر الحرم. ذو القعدة اسم الأشهر الحرم, right? Sacred months, right? And so is Dhul Hijjah, and so is Rajab Mudar. Okay? These are sacred months in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Some of the wisdoms we understand behind the Hajj. And again, you need to have that understanding going there. It's not just all about fiqh. How do I do this? How do I do that? You don't feel like you're on a task or a job or a project. Let me get this one done, and this one done, and this one done. Okay, where's my paycheck? Right? That's not the case. Hajj, from my experience, is a life-changing experience. I've seen this with recent weavers to Islam, or the majority of which were with us in the first Hajj. And their behavior is totally different. One of them actually, when he went to Medina, he said, I'm going to stay here. African American. He said, I'm going to live here. He said, I'm going to go back to the US. I'm going to submit my resignation. I'm going to gather my stuff. I'm going to come to Medina. So it really is a life-changing experience. And you find some people who are like taking Islam for granted. They're going there while everybody's performing their sha'air and their manasik and all of that, their acts of worship. They're sitting there smoking their cigarette, drinking their coffee and their tea, and as if, it's like in Mina, the longest line I've seen. I was a little surprised. Like I see this very, very long line. I said, what's going on? That was my first Hajj. I said, what's going on? And it was like, I don't know. So I'm going to the beginning of this year. What do you think they're waiting for? Tea. I'm not kidding you. I was shocked. It's like, what? All this line for tea? Yeah. Don't do that. Don't do that. First and foremost, from the wisdoms we understand, from the wisdom we understand by Hajj, is that Labbaik Allahumma Labbaik. It's a significant sign of Tawheed. La ilaha illallah. Hada Baytullah al-Haram. I'm a visitor. I'm a guest of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's an honor for me. Okay? Number two, obviously you wear the ridab and the izar. It doesn't matter who you are. You're the CEO, you're the multi-billionaire, you're the doctor, you're the lawyer, the janitor. Everybody looks the same. Which reminds us of what? The day of resurrection. In the day of resurrection, you're not going to have an izar, you're not going to have a ridab. You're going to be naked. So Aisha said, "O Prophet of Allah, naked and we are looking at each other's awrah." He said, "Yabnat as-Siddiq," or you're the son of the truthful one, as-Siddiq Abu Bakr. That's not the time for people to be looking at each other. This is a time where there's hellfire and there's paradise. Right? There's a time of reckoning. Plus Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would make the hair grow on the private parts that they're not going to be visible to one another. But that's not something on the mind of anybody. Not on the mind of anybody. Right? Showing our destitute and our poverty and our need to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, nobody else. Nobody else. Obviously, when you're wearing the ihram and you feel like you're moving from one place to the next, especially when you're in Mina, right? In Mina, you're in a tent, you're sleeping on the floor, you're eating food. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive those who provide it, but sometimes that food is stale. Sometimes that food is, it's like that. Unfortunately, that's people. In the days of Jahiliyyah, people used to compete who visited the Kaaba with the idols. People used to compete who's going to give the pilgrims food or water or services. Now they compete who's going to use and abuse and manipulate the pilgrims. After the message of Islam, well over 1400 years ago. So again, I share this with you. You're going to see all of this. You're going to see, unfortunately, it's becoming more of a money-making proposition. That's all it is. For those who are providing the service, for the most part, I do not speak about everybody. Okay? I've actually been offered that. One brother obviously, he said, if you market it to the masajid where you go, we give you this much on every package. I said, that's not my line of business, sorry. That's not my line of business. And you'll find sometimes people who want to market their business, in the West, they put the imam on the stage to give what? Credibility to whatever it is they're marketing. So don't be fooled by that. Don't be fooled by that. Practicing piety and taqwa. You are leaving everyone and everything behind. Everything that you are used to, the comfort of your home and your bed and your car and your this. You travel the distance, thousands of miles, you incur the cost, average cost minimum at this point, about $10,000, right? So that's going to be a very significant amount of money for some people, right? So you're doing all of that, right? Showing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I'm doing this as a response to your call. So that is definitely taqwa and piety. The Prophet ﷺ used to stand at the front of his house and to perform the Hajj. You say, Hajj la sum'atan wa la riya. Keep these two words in mind. It's not for reputation, and it's not out of showing off. So you need to, why? Because you say, you've been to Hajj, you gotta go visit, they put the lights and they put the decorations and they expect the gifts. It's more like a social activity. It's not. It's a ibadah. It's a ibadah, so don't pay attention to these things. Of course, you have to show huge amounts of restraint and discipline while you're there. You're going to see people misbehaving. You're going to see people fighting. You're going to see people stealing. Unfortunately, in the haram. So you're going to see all of that, right? Just stay focused. This is really where you really have to test yourself and just hold yourself to a very high standard and just stay focused on your ibadah. And just keep reminding yourself, I'm here for the nusuk, the manasik, the pillars, and the wajibat and the sunnah of Hajj. Of course, that huge amount of number of people in one small place reminds us of what? The Day of Judgment. There are going to be a lot more people. There are going to be a lot more people, and the sun is going to be so close to everybody's head. And people will be, so remember, you're going to be sweating in the summer. So you have to keep yourself hydrated. You just gotta keep on drinking water. You have to, right? And people will be going on Judgment Day to Adam, and then Nuh, and then Ibrahim, and then Musa, and then Isa, and then Muhammad asking for shorter session because it is so hot, right? إِلَّا مَنْ رَحِمَ رَبِّي. Some will be drowned in their sweat up to their knees, up to their waist, up to their chest, up to their necks, right? So just keep that in mind. Day of Judgment is much higher. Okay, that will help you, you know. This is also showing a level of gratitude of the endless bounties, ni'am, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestowed upon us. Endless, you know, beyond comprehension, not even the benefits of one bounty. So like we are showing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we exerted our very best, we're spending from our wealth, we're doing everything that needs to be done to respond to the call of Ibrahim alayhi salam.
Earlier you mentioned we could possibly see someone stealing. We still have to enjoin the good and forbid the evil, right? Or we have to focus on the ibadah.
Well, you see, there's security there, right? So your mission is to report that person. But typically, you know, people who steal, they snatch and they run. You run after them. Right. You haven't been there, you know theoretically what I'm talking about, but not realistically. Things are different. Yeah, so just there's plenty security there are plenty police officers, right? And they have a lot to deal with. Trust me. They actually put the military on the ground. They put the military on the ground. It's not, you know, it's not managing 2, 3, 4 million people in a small place. Imagine if you have 5,000 people in this masjid. That's overwhelming, right? That's a drop in the bucket when it comes to, you know, being in the haram. So many people, right? And Brother Ahmed is always concerned about enjoining the good and forbidding the evil. That's all well and good. But there's a huge amount of fiqh, the know-how to enjoin the good and forbid the evil. And there's also the experience and the balance between the two. It's just a host of issues, right? But what you can do is just report the incident, right? But oftentimes, you know, they catch up with these people. Yeah, security cameras everywhere, right? They'll catch them. So don't put yourself and your life at risk, right? Here I come to save you. No, don't do that. Yeah. Okay, so we talked about Hajj. It's a rukn, it's a must, it's a rukn of Islam. One who disbelieves in Hajj is a disbeliever. They visit the state of Islam. Is Hajj a pillar that must be performed immediately when the means and the abilities are there, or can I just wait? The opinion that I subscribe to, based on ample evidence, the moment you have the means and the ability and the accessibility to perform the Hajj, it's a wajib. For many reasons. These means and these abilities, be it the wealth or the health or whatever, they come and go. No guarantee. We come and go. No guarantee. We have no guarantee I'm going to live to be 30 and 40 and 50. So therefore, now the opportunity is available. And I ask you a question. If the opportunity is available now to make $1 million, what do you do? You're going to do everything you can to get that $1 million. Guess what? That $1 million is nothing compared to Hajj. Absolutely nothing. I give that example because, you know, al-mal wal-banuna zinatul hayat ad-dunya, right? Wealth and children are the ornaments of this life. And we go not the extra mile, the extra miles to make the money. And to seek a business or a job opportunity or a career, right? Some of us will go for Hajj. You never know, this could be your last Hajj, your first and last. Right? So, and imagine for those who died, a lot of people go to Hajj with the death wish. Alright? Imagine those, they come on Judgment Day, labbaik Allahumma labbaik, they come safe and secure. Right? You don't wash them, or you just bury them in their ihram clothes. So, we're not moving here to an LLC or a partnership or whatever, we're moving to Jannah. If you die in Hajj, you're moving to Jannah immediately. Right? Provided that, you repented from all of your sins. Okay, according to scholarly opinion, Umrah is also a wajib. That one must perform Umrah at least once in a lifetime. Okay, and there's ample evidence to support that. The time of Umrah is when?
Earlier on, except
Anytime. It's open, all year round. Time of Umrah is all year round, right? How many Umrahs can you do in 1 year? Endless, as many as you want. Okay? How many Umrahs can you do in 1 trip?
So there is a dispute, I heard.
Well,
Some say
you
one,
know,
some say
the reality of it, the Prophet ﷺ did 1 Umrah in his journey, the Sahaba did 1 Umrah, the Tabi'een did 1 Umrah. We don't know of anybody who did more than 1 Umrah in the same trip. So this is something that has been invented by people. Okay, that people will, I'm going to do Umrah on behalf of my father, on behalf of my mother.
So, question: if I go from here to Mecca, I do the Umrah first, then I go there. Then I go to Medina, and from Medina back to Mecca. What should I not do there?
You can do Umrah on behalf of somebody else, but I'm talking about in the same journey. That somebody would intentionally leave Mecca to go to the miqat, so they could do the ihram again and do the Umrah again. And they would go out and
Taif and then back.
yeah, so again, majority scholar opinion is khilaf as-sunnah. This is not the sunnah. But the Prophet said.
Some
Okay.
people take ihram from Masjid Aisha.
Yeah.
From where Masjid Aisha?
Tan'im, yeah, they go to Tan'im.
Yeah, they go from Baitullah to Masjid Aisha. They fix
Okay.
ihram and come to Baitullah.
We're going to address the ihram, inshallah. So we'll save that until we get there,
What
inshallah.
about so some people they do the invitation, the niyyah from their, let's say from Ethiopia. Usually they start the niyyah in the plane. When I go to from there, some people I saw them they started from what's it?
The niyyah of
in
ihram?
the neighboring countries when they transit to the neighboring country. So the other guy also did immediately after he arrived GED airport. He changed his clothes and so
No,
when
we're going to come to that, trust me.
Okay.
We're going to come to that in more details.
Okay.
In more details, inshallah. Okay. So, when someone is in Mecca, okay, and they're staying put there, you cannot just basically get out of your ihram, get back into your ihram, and do the second umrah, the third umrah. No. Tawaf is an ibadah. Sa'i is an ibadah. Do as much tawaf as you want, as much dhikr as you want, as much recitation of the Quran. But the idea is that وَمَا أَتَاكُمُ الرَّسُولُ فَخُذُوهُ وَمَا نَهَاكُمْ عَنْهُ فَانْتَهُوا. العبادات توقيفية. Acts of worship, توقيفية means you have to stop to authenticate your ibadah, to authenticate the methodology, the method that your ibadah is being performed, to ascertain that you're following the sunnah, right? And then there's plenty of ibadah that we can do, more than we can do, right? But we don't need to invent anything. We should not be inventing things like that.
So, question: I've seen people.
Another reason why the scholars actually discourage from, repeatedly doing the Umrah time and time again, is that you have limited space there, right? And I've been to Umrah where the time for Salah comes, and basically we standing there not in the around the Kaaba, but way much further from the Kaaba. Guess what? There is no space to line up or make ruku' or make sujood or any of that. The Iqamah was there, and everybody just prayed standing up and just lean in as much as they can. So what are you going to do? There's nothing you can do. You look around you, there are people praying on the staircase, people are staying on the rail, praying on the rail. I'm not kidding you. There's no space. So basically when you do the Umrah, 5 times, you're taking space from other people who need to do the Umrah as well. Right? So remember what I said last time? It's not about me, it's about what I can do for others as well. We cannot be selfish that it's all about me. Make sense? You've done your Umrah, alhamdulillah, may Allah accept. The other ibadat that you can do. And inshallah you can be rewarded for having that intention, is that you want others to have equal opportunity to perform the Umrah. Right? Inshallah. Now,
Like when you go Hajj, like you just have to do one Umrah, you cannot do more than that.
just Umrah, one Umrah. you've done your Umrah. It depends. We're going to talk about, Al-Hajj al-Munfarid, al-Tamattu' wal-Qiran. We're going to talk about these things, inshallah. So just give me some time, and inshallah we'll address all of this. Now, let's talk about the conditions of Hajj. The conditions of Hajj. There are 3 different levels. There are, conditions that make the obligatory Hajj acceptable. There are conditions that make the Hajj sufficient as required once in a lifetime for the Muslim. And there are conditions that make the Hajj obligatory, just altogether. Okay? So, the conditions that make the Hajj obligatory and correct and sufficient, once in a lifetime, al-Islam wal-Aql. That one is a Muslim. Any ibadah is not accepted from a non-Muslim. It doesn't matter. Qiyam al-Layl, Sadaqah, Siyam, Hajj, Umrah, not accepted. Right? Al-Aql, manat al-taklif. Without this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would not have commissioned this to do anything. Okay, so we have to have these 2. Now, what if someone performs Hajj while they're 6, 7, 8, 9? Is that sufficient for a lifetime? No, that is not sufficient. It's accepted, but la yujzi. It's not sufficient for the obligatory Hajj. Why? Because you have to have reached the age of puberty. So for the Hajj to be correct, you need to be a Muslim, you need to be aqil, of sound mind. But for the Hajj to be sufficient for you as a Muslim, you have to have reached the age of puberty. So you can perform any Hajj, all the Hajj you want, right? Before you reach the age of puberty, you still have to do at least one after you reach the age of puberty. Make sense? Okay. And then, al-istita'a, that you have the ability to perform the Hajj, financially and physically. And of course, in physically, there's also accessibility. In the good old days, there are no visas and whatever. People want to go for Hajj, they went for Hajj. But now you need to have accessibility, you have to have a visa. Try to go without visa. They will not let you in. Okay. Alright. What if someone embraces Islam, and we see this happen, and a few years later they go for Hajj, and a few years later they leave Islam. And then they think about it and say, I made a huge mistake, I'm coming back to Islam. Do they need to perform the Hajj again? No. The answer is no. According to majority scholarly opinion, the first Hajj is sufficient. So Hajj is not obligatory upon one who doesn't have a sound mind, one who doesn't know what they're doing, a minor that really cannot distinguish. So it's not obligatory. I'm trying to really go fast here and just leave some room for Q&A at the end, at least to cover the basics. So they go into some details that we really don't need to go into that. We need to just address Hajj conditions, arkan, wajibat, and sunnah for us, inshallah. Some of the conditions of Hajj, al-hurriyyah, you have to be a free person. Alhamdulillah, Islam came to abolish slavery, but it still exists in some parts of the world, unjustly, unfairly, right? But one has to be free. So if one performs the Hajj while they're a slave, and now they become free, they still have to perform the Hajj again. They still have to perform the Hajj again. Al-hurriyyah, freedom, for the Hajj to be sufficient as an obligatory act of worship upon the Muslim. So we're not saying while they're a slave their Hajj is not accepted. It is accepted. But when they're free, now it's a different ballgame. You have to perform the Hajj again as a free person. Okay? We talked about reaching the age of puberty. You can perform the Hajj before that, but once you reach the age of puberty, now, Islamically speaking, you're obligated to perform one Hajj. Again, I'm just skipping through, sifting through information that's really not pertinent to us. So al-istita'a, one who is, istita'a means ability to perform the Hajj. One who has the wealth, and here what do we mean by the wealth? Not just for Hajj. Means that you cannot abandon your family. Say, okay, stay fasting for the next 2 weeks while I go for Hajj and come back. Right? So you have to provide for your family, your children, your spouse, people that are in your custody. You know, sufficient housing, food, water, necessities, and then provide for yourself. You know, basically the transportation and the food and the water and the accommodation. And there's some leeway in that, right? But in the good old days, people who didn't have the means, they just had money for the ticket. They just bought the ticket, they went for Hajj and they had barely any money. And they basically, people bought food for them, people provided food for them. They lived in the haram, they put their tents there. They do not allow that anymore. You know, for those who don't know, they do not allow that anymore. So you need to have, you need to make some arrangements, you know, for you to be able to have accommodation. Again, it doesn't have to be a $10,000 package. You know, there are ways and means of, you know, basically performing the Hajj by staying in a hotel that maybe for, you know, $30 a night, $40 a night. It doesn't have to be a hotel that is 2, 3, 4, 5, and more, $100 per night. And things get very expensive in the season, be it in Ramadan or in the Hajj season. Okay. Of course, talk about accessibility. You have to have the access to that. Ability to perform the Hajj is a must. So if one is financially able but physically unable, what should they do?
They're not obligated.
Yes, they are. They can have somebody else perform the Hajj on their behalf. But that someone else needs to have performed their Hajj first. But one who doesn't have the financial means to perform the Hajj, they're not obligated to do that. Okay? So physically, if you need, now there's all sorts of help there. So if you're a person who can perform some of the sha'air and others, sha'air means the manasik, the acts of worship, and some others you need help with, there's plenty of help. There are wheelchairs, there are, you know, arrangements that you can make with your travel agent or whatever, and they will help you with that. But someone who just lacks the capacity, period, they're not obligated to go. Just like someone who's unable to fast, they're not obligated to fast. They just feed, you know, a poor person for every day they break the fast. Am I required to seek my parents' permission for performing the obligatory Hajj?
If they are in need of you.
We're just talking about general rule now. Don't go into the exceptions. Am I Islamically required to seek my parents if I'm 18 and 19? I've reached the age of puberty. I want to go for Hajj. I have my own money, I can go. Do I need my parents' permission? The general rule, no, you don't. For the nafila, you do. For the nafila, if you've done the Hajj, why? Because this is obligatory upon you. Just like you don't need your parents' permission to fast the month of Ramadan, to pray 5 daily prayers, right? To pay your zakat. It's a must. Okay? Now, if the parents are totally dependent on you, one or both of them, and if you leave, you leave them in a mess, then obviously you can delay your Hajj. Why? Because you have a valid reason to delay your Hajj. Make sense? Yeah. Unless you can make other arrangements. Some people have enough wealth to make arrangements for somebody to come and, live in care, take care of them and whatever, make sure things are okay, then you can go for Hajj. Okay? Okay, am I required to seek your, permission from my employer to go perform the Hajj? The paycheck. The answer is yes, unless you're going to quit your job. Because you leave your employer in a predicament instead of going for a Hajj. So, okay, don't come back, just stay there. Okay? When it comes to Salah, I mentioned this for the benefit, you're not required to seek your employer's permission for the fard. For the fard. But for the sunnah, yes. with the sunnah, yes. Make sense? If you are hired to work 8 hours a day, you need to work 8 hours a day. But they cannot circumvent you from praying. Okay? One way is that I'll make it up, I'll just add another 30 minutes for the sunnah and work an extra 30 minutes to make sure that your money is halal. Some employers are not concerned about how many hours you spend on the job. They're result oriented. Get the project done, you do it in one day, take the rest of the month off. Now you make enough sales, khalas, you met your quota, you're good. They're not concerned about the hours. Okay? So you have to know what type of job you're in. Some employers say, no, you have to clock in, you have to clock out. Okay? So while you're on the clock, you're on their time, they're paying you for that. And we're talking about the halal and the haram, right? So you have to be careful about that. Okay, we talked about the istita'a. I mean, there's just a lot of information here. I'm just trying to focus on that really, is needed. All right. So if I'm a person, a young man that has $10,000, and that qualifies me to go either for Hajj or to get married, what should I do? Can't do both in $10,000. What should you do after?
Is this my first Hajj?
It's your first Hajj, yes. Otherwise, we would not even be talking about this. It's your first Hajj.
Go for the Hajj.
Go for the Hajj. What about if somebody else chooses to get married?
It's sunnah.
Huh?
It's sunnah.
It really depends on the person. It depends on the person. Because if I'm a person who basically fears for themselves to fall into zina, my internet drive is pretty high, right? It's a higher obligation on me to get married with this money, and then because it may take me another 2-3 years to accumulate that $10,000. So now you have to get married. Make sense? There's no point to go for Hajj and then come back and commit zina. It's like, you following? Yeah. So.
Excuse me, marriage is first or is sunnah?
I'm sorry.
Marriage is first or sunnah?
Marriage actually can take the 5 different rules. So from obligatory to prohibited to mandub to makruh to mubah. So it's obligatory for those who have the means, right? And basically they fear for themselves to fall into zina. That's obligatory. For those who don't have the means, right? And perhaps they have some sort of a dysfunction physically or whatever, then it's prohibited for them to get married because they're going to cause tremendous injustice to the young lady. Okay? And then of course it moves on to a nafila, mandub or makruh, and then moves on to the mubah, where everything is equal, then whether you get married or not, I don't want to go too much into details just in the interest of time, inshallah.
According to Quran, it doesn't seem like first or wajib, because Allah says, "Fankihu ma tahrir." It's like a kind of.
You see, we're not going to talk about Hajj. You're married, right? And you have children. We're not going to talk about that because you haven't been to Hajj, you haven't been to Umrah. Let's talk about that. Yeah, we have to do things in priority, brother. Step 1, 2, 3, 4. You've already been through the marriage situation. But we'll talk about family law later. All right. Another issue that we need to be concerned for, which determines whether you can or cannot go for Hajj, is that the road or the journey has to be a safe journey. Right? So, now things are escalating in the Middle East. They start escalating more and more, and missiles are flying everywhere. Number one, not going to find a flight. No one's going to be taking you to Hajj or Umrah, right? But in the good old days, people traveled on foot, traveled with horses and donkeys and camels and whatever. And there's so many thieves and criminals along the way. So if you do not feel safe to make that long journey, then don't go. Okay? Why? Because one of the primary objectives of Islam is the protection of life. The protection of life. Okay? Now let's talk about a little bit about the sisters. Okay, talk a little bit about the sisters. A woman who goes for Hajj needs a mahram. That can be a husband or any man that she cannot marry. Prohibited for her to marry. Her son, her uncle, her brother, right? And this could be brother for rida'a. Rida'a means like a nursing brother because she cannot marry a nursing brother. Okay? It could be a prohibition because of musahara. Someone just got married and the mother of his wife, right? His mother-in-law wants to go for Hajj. Yeah, he can take her because he cannot marry her anyways, right? So things of that nature. She needs to have a mahram. She needs to have a mahram with her. Again, there's some fatwas out there. I'm not trying to override any fatwas. That if a woman is of old age and she's basically part of a hamla means that a group travel and everything's safe and secure and their proper security measures along the way from point A to point B and back, then they said that's fine. But again, I think that's to be evaluated really for, I mean, I don't think you can just make that blanket rule for every woman. Make sense? If a woman, your wife, she's never been to Hajj, she saved up enough money, she wants to go for Hajj. Can you stop her from doing that? Yes? Now that your head is that yes? You gotta stop your wife from doing her rukn.
By herself or with the mahram?
Well, with the mahram, of course. We already established that.
Yeah. I think she doesn't need permission while doing the farz. Same maybe like the father and son.
Well, she does not need permission, okay? The brother is like, what should I do? The fact of the matter, that's her obligatory Hajj, is that her first Hajj, and she has the means, and there's a safety and the ability, right, to do that, and she has a mahram. Her husband cannot stop her, and should not stop her. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَتَعَوَنُوا عَلَى الْبِرِّ وَالتَّقْوَى. So why would you want to stop your wife from going for Hajj? You should be going with her, right ahead. I'm going to keep on picking on you today. Until you go for Umrah and Hajj. Inshallah soon. Right? But if it's a nafila, it's a different story. Khalas, you've been for Hajj, alhamdulillah, you're done. Okay? If it's a nafila, it's different. Okay. Of course, other measures to consider. She doesn't have a nursing child. So what are you going to do with her? I can't nurse her child. Right? So, things like that to be taken into consideration. But yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. لا طاعة لمخلوق في معصية الخالق. You cannot obey the created in disobedience of the creator. Okay? But again, we're talking about the obligatory. Another condition for women is that she's not in iddah. Some scholars distinguish between iddah because of death, iddah because of divorce. Is it the first and second divorce, or is it the final divorce? Is it there's a corrupted marriage contract and that needs to be dissolved by a judge or whatever? Some scholars distinguish, between this iddah. You know what iddah is, right? Yeah. But in reality, to be on the safe side, just don't go for Hajj during the iddah. Don't go for Hajj during the iddah. Just to be on the safe side. And to make sure that your Hajj is Hajj mabrur and acceptable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? Because it's an issue of dispute among the different schools of thought. Like Abu Hanifa has different opinions, from other madhahib, whether, it's iddah of divorce or iddah of death or iddah of, khulq, right? Things of that nature. And there's also another form of iddah that the scholars, as a matter of ijtihad, they basically said, if a woman embraces Islam, right? Let's say two Christians are married, right? And the woman embraces Islam. And the husband is basically saying, it's not for me. So then basically the scholars say she stays with him 3 months, which is the iddah of a divorcee. and she does not sleep in the same room or the same bed and dress conservatively, right? And if he during that period of time embraces Islam, alhamdulillah, all is good. No need for a marriage contract, no need for a new one. If he does not, then that's it. They have to separate. They have to separate. So that's another form of iddah by way of ijtihad that the scholars have, recommended. What about? Hajj and nifas, it doesn't stop a woman from going for Hajj. Does not stop a woman from.
Some of the rukuns, and she's missing some of those. So she.
We're going to talk about that in a little bit, inshallah. Yeah. Okay, now we're talking about Arkan al-Hajj and the wajibat, and that's for Hajj and Umrah. Arkan al-Hajj. First, al-Ihram. You have to be in a state of Ihram. Okay? Now we need to distinguish between a rukn, a wajib, and a sunnah. Okay? I know we used to like making ghusl and praying, and but that is a sunnah. Here we're talking about a rukn. Just like the arkan as-salah. Your salah is invalid without performing all of the arkan. So your hajj is invalid without the rukn. Is that clear? Okay, so the first thing is you have to be in a state of ihram. You have to be in a state of ihram.
Fara'id.
No. Well, you can say fara'id. Some scholars use these terms interchangeably. But some scholars also, they say farida is a wajib and wajib is a farida. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about rukn. A rukn is a pillar, like this is a rukn. You take that out, ceiling collapses. Make sense? Just think of it this way. Okay? So ihram. Second, al-wuquf bi-arafah. Al-Hajj Arafah. Emphasis added by the Prophet ﷺ. Tawaf al-Ifada, the last tawaf that you do. Okay? And then as-sa'i. So these are four again. Someone repeat them for us? First one? Ihram. Arafah. Tawaf. Al-Ifada.
In the sa'i, I just
And the sa'i. And the sa'i. These are the arkan of Hajj. And these have to be done, otherwise your Hajj is incorrect. Now when it comes to the wajibat, if you don't do a wajib, you can ransom yourself. And in some cases you could be sinful, right? And you still have to pay the fidya, right? But you can ransom yourself, but your Hajj is still correct. In this case, if you miss a rukn, your Hajj is incorrect. Very similar to Salah. You miss a rukn, your Salah is incorrect. Okay.
Slaughtering this the sunnah or something?
I'm sorry?
The slaughtering this.
We're going to come to that. We're going to come to that because it depends. If you're doing Hajj Mufrad, Quran, or Tamattu. Quran and Tamattu, you have to do the fidya, the udhiyah. If you do Munfarid, means no Umrah, you're just coming for Hajj, you don't have to slaughter. We're going to come to that. Yeah, I'm trying to go in order. So we establish the foundation and we build on it. We start with the fundamentals, the basics, with what matters, what makes your Hajj valid. Okay? All right. So number 2 is the wajib. You have to do ihram from the miqat. There are certain places that are called the miqat, right? And if you go from here, they announce we're about 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes away from the miqat, means be prepared. So you have to enter a state of ihram from the miqat, and if you're flying, before the miqat. If you don't know where the miqat is and you're coming from a direction that is between two miqats, you want to make sure that you are at least doing the ihram in a line that is parallel to the two. And if you're not sure, do it before, to be on the safe side. And everything in life is based on ghalabat al-dhann, preponderance of the evidence. Okay? So I do my very best. I'm traveling in open space, I don't have my Android or my Apple phone or Google Qibla, and now I need to find out where the Qibla is. I do my best. The same thing for the miqat. You do your best. And then you enter a state of ihram from the miqat. Okay? And that's a wajib. Being in a state of ihram is a rukn. Doing the ihram from the miqat is a wajib. You see the difference? Okay.
What's the meaning of miqat?
The meaning of miqat, there are certain fixed places that you should not, pass before getting into state of ihram. And if you do, then we're going to come to that, then there's a penalty. Okay? That's the miqat. Okay. So there's miqat zamani, timely miqat, and there's miqat makani, which means place, time and place. Okay? Right. الوقوف بعرفة إلى غروب الشمس لمن وقف نهارا. So if you stand in Arafah during the day, you have to stay there until sunset. Some people have the understanding you have to leave Arafah before sunset. No. You have to leave Arafah after sunset.
So Arafah start by the noon time?
No, you start basically, you head to Arafah, after Shuruq. So after Shuruq al-Shams, you start heading to Arafah.
So what's like the last time that you?
Well, you need to be there for at least part of the night, part of the day. You need to be in Arafah part of the day. If you miss it,
Before sunset?
Oh,
yeah, you have to be there during the day. And you have to stay until after sunset.
Some scholar, like I heard it, I don't know if it's authenticated or not, they say you have to be there by noon time. If you come after the noon time, so your Arafat is going to be in Wadi.
Right, but it doesn't mean you missed Arafah if you come after noon time. Like you have to attend Salat al-Jum'ah there, Salat al-Dhuhr. And there's a place of dua. خير ما قلت أنا والنبيين من قبلي the best of dua لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له له الملك وله الحمد على كل شيء قدير. لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له له الملك وله الحمد على كل شيء قدير. So the Arafah is a place of dua. The Prophet ﷺ kept on making dua until sunset. Until sunset. And that's where he gave khutbah al-wada in Arafah. Right? So you go there, it's like, what are you busy? What are you doing? You're going for Hajj. So make it there before Dhuhr. Minimum, make it there before Dhuhr. Okay? So that's wajib, okay? Wajib number 3. Arafah is which day? The 9th. So you leave Arafah and you go to where? Muzdalifah. So you have to stay the night, which is the night of the day of Nahr, the 10th day. You have to spend that night in Muzdalifah.
You leave after Fajr prayer.
Yes, you spend the night there. Well, Fajr comes at night. Right? Fajr comes at night. Right? وكلوا واشربوا حتى يتبين لكم الخيط الأبيض من الخيط الأسود من الفجر. Right? So the day begins with what? The day begins with Maghrib, yes, and finishes with Shuruq al-Shams. Min Maghrib al-Shams ila Shuruq al-Shams. That's the night, and then it continues to the next sunset. Right? 24 hours. The day begins with sunset. The night begins with sunset. So the day begins with the night. So what night tonight is? Tuesday night. Okay? So Tuesday began with the sunset. Salat al-Maghrib we prayed now, right? And the night continues till Shuruq al-Shams. Fajr. If you want to calculate it this way. Okay? Fajr, and then you have Shuruq all the way up until sunset. Okay? No, you're right, it is Fajr. It is Fajr. Because that's Subh al-Sadiq. Okay? But here traditionally it's like the day begins with sunrise. Okay. Anyways, Nabit Laylat al-Nahr, so the night of Nahr, which is Nahr is that's the greatest day in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is the 10th day of the Hijjah. Okay? And it's one of the reasons why, or many of the reasons why it's the greatest day in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because most of the ibadat are performed in that day. Be it رمي الجمرة الكبرى, الحلقة بالتقصير, طواف الإفاضة, right? And nahr, right? Sa'i, all of that is, in the day of Nahr, the 10th day of the Hajj. So that is the greatest and the most sacred day, in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, according to majority scholarly opinion, of the year. Okay? So the night of Nahr, we spend it where? In Muzdalifah. When do we leave Muzdalifah?
Morning.
After Fajr. Where we go to?
Mina.
Jumrah.
We go to throw al-Jamra al-Kubra. Only al-Jamra al-Kubra on the day of Nahr. On the 11th, 12th, and 13th, Ayyam al-Tashriq, we do what? Jamra al-Sughra, al-Wusta, al-Kubra, in order. 11th, 12th, 13th. 3 Jamrat. The small one, the medium one, and the big one. And how many Jamrat? 12? 7. 7, 7, 7, 21. And with every throw you say, Allahu Akbar. So don't throw your shoes, don't throw big rocks. Be careful where you throw, because there are people in the way. Trust me, I've seen blood there.
You see a lot of people throw their sack down.
Yeah, I've seen blood, I've seen a lot of strange things. Follow the Sunnah. It's all symbolic. It's all symbolic. Okay? And when you're done with Rami al-Jamarat, you face the Qibla and you make dua. And the same thing. Face the Qibla after the second, the medium Jamra, and make dua, and after the third one, and make dua. Dua is well received there. Okay?
So can you repeat what we do on Yawm al-Nahr? So
I'm sorry?
what we do like on Yawm al-Nahr? So
Yawm al-Nahr?
yeah.
The Prophet ﷺ, when people have asked, what do I start with? Should I start with the sacrifice first? Should I start with the tawaf al-ifada? He said, if'al wa la haraj. Means that it's a very busy day. Whatever order you can, do it. Okay? You can do Rami al-Jamarat first, you can do the Nahr first, you can do, right? But Rami al-Jamra begins with after Shuruq al-Shams. That's on the day of Nahr, the 10th day of the Hajj. Rami al-Jamarat for Ayyam al-Tashriq, the days of Tashriq, 11th, 12th, 13th, begins with Waqt al-Zawal, which is the time of Dhuhr. Time of Dhuhr all the way up to sunset. Some scholars, they said, if the circumstances are extenuating and the Quran is too great, and they basically give like an easy way of accommodating people like that to throw the Jamarat at night. Make sense? For those who just like physically unable to compete with the crowd, and make sense? Just like Salah, can't pray standing up, sit down. Can't pray sit down, recline or on your side. Make sense? Okay. So we spent now the 10th night in Muzdalifah, and on the after Salat al-Fajr we go to Rami al-Jamarat, and then we stay in Mina, in Mabit fi Mina. Okay? And that's for the days of Tashriq, 11, 12, and 13. And with that, what size the temple needs to be? The size of a chickpea or a fava.
Chickpeas.
Yeah, but don't go grab big stones. Some people like they take the shoe and they stick. It's not sunnah. Yeah. In their mind, shaitan lives there. That's not the case. I say, this is the place, by the way, where Iblis appeared to Ibrahim a.s. when he was about to slaughter his son, and he was trying to discourage him from doing that. And Ibrahim a.s. would take his stone and would throw it at him. So it's symbolic. You're not going there to slaughter your son, right? Shaitan is not going to show up there. So it's symbolic of what Ibrahim a.s. was doing.
What do you say?
Every time you throw, Allahu Akbar.
Yes, Allah.
You want to make sure that you got it in there. Okay? So you come close enough. The way they've organized things now, they made it very easy. Because you have 3 levels. You have 3 levels. So the crowd is split into three different parts. So you can do it with ease, and they also have one way going and one way coming back. Before it used to be going and coming back same direction, which was very difficult.
Yeah, it was before.
Yeah, I mean, imagine traffic moving in 2 opposite directions.
Yeah, 2004, 5, 6, that time, like people throw the rocks and then come back. We have to go same way. So what happened? People those who are close to the railing, when you push back,
Yeah, they got pushed
they,
through.
they fall from the top on the bottom. That guy die and whoever fall on it, that dies. So that time, like more than 200 people.
You know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَمَا كَانَ لِمُؤْمِنٍ أَن يَقْتُلَ مُؤْمِنًا إِلَّا خَطَأً. Right? It is not the case that a believer would kill another believer except by error. Some of the interpretation, وَلَا خَطَأً, not even by mistake. What does that mean? It means that you should have exercised your due diligence to avoid such disaster. Right? So again, and again, and again, it's not about you. If you're a strong young person, it's not about you, it's about what you can do for others. Everybody, trust me, everybody's going there for that same purpose. To do exactly what you are doing. And you probably, it's no big deal to you to spend $10,000. In their case, that's their lively savings. And some of them sell some of their essentials to make that trip, just to buy that airfare ticket. So we need to be more considerate of people who are not coming from America or the Western world or whatever. Some people just don't have the means, and that's like they want to do exactly what you're doing. They have extremely limited opportunities. Okay. So number 5 is to throw the jamarat 3 in order. So you cannot go to the big one and the medium. No, you start with the small and then the middle, the medium, and then the large. And then you do al-halq or al-taqsir. Al-halq means to shave your head or to shorten your hair. And in the authentic hadith, Prophet ﷺ said, رحم الله المحلقين. رحم الله المحلقين. And then in the 4th one he said, والمقصرين. Or كما قال صلى الله عليه وسلم. So it's highly encouraged that you shave your head. I did that the first time. My head felt very fuzzy. The skin is like, because I'm not used to it. But some people are just used to it, it doesn't affect them. Right? And make sure, just a side note, and now I think they do make sure they exercise, whoever you go there, that they practice good hygienic, shaving. Right? Not using that same blade for you and 10 other people. Because that can transfer germs and bacteria and things like that. I mean, they do that now. But before, sometimes, they try to save on the blades and whatever. You have to be very careful. It's a very serious matter. And then, last but not least, you do tawaf al-wada. You do tawaf al-wada. Okay? When you do tawaf al-wada, some of the Sahaba, they used to immediately leave Mecca. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَنْ يُرِدْ فِيهِ بِإِلْحَادٍ بِظُلْمٍ نُذِقْهُ مِنْ عَذَابٍ شَدِيدٍ. That one who causes mischief or corruption. So these ayat were very, very scary to them. They don't want to make any mistakes or commit any sins, knowingly or unknowingly. So they would leave Mecca immediately. Okay? How much time do we have? Do we have any time? We have 3 minutes for Iqamah? Alright, that's fine. Then we'll save the rest for. You can see there's a lot of information here, right? But we covered a good amount, right? And we talked about the pillars and the wajibat, which is the most important thing. So next we'll talk about the pillars and wajibat for Umrah, conditions, and then we'll talk about other matters, inshallah. Alright. هذا والله تعالى أعلى وأعلم. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. يا رب يا الحمد كما ينبغي لجلال وجهك وعظيم سلطانك حمدا جميلا طيبا مباركا فيه ملء السماوات وملء الارض ملء ما بينهما اهل الثناء والمجد حق ما قال العبد وكلنا لك عبد لا مانع لما اعطيت ولا معطي لما منعت ولا ينفع ذا الجد منك الجد. اللهم اقسم لنا من خشيتك ما تحول به بيننا وبين معاصيك ومن طاعتك ما تبلغنا به جنتك ومن اليقين ما تهون به علينا مصائب الدنيا ومتعنا اللهم باسماعنا وابصارنا وقواتنا أبدا ما أحييتنا واجعله الوارث منا واجعل ثأرنا على من ظلمنا ولا تجعل الدنيا أكبر همنا ولا مبلغ علمنا ولا إلى النار مصيرنا. اللهم اشف مرضانا اللهم اشف مرضانا اللهم اشفهم شفاء لا يغادر سقما. اللهم رب الناس أذهب البأس اشف أنت الشافي لا شفاء إلا شفاءك شفاء لا يغادر سقما. اللهم رب الناس أذهب البأس اشف أنت الشافي لا شفاء إلا شفاءك شفاء لا يغادر سقما. اللهم رب الناس أذهب البأس اشف أنت الشافي لا شفاء إلا شفاء شفاء لا يغادر سقما. اللهم ارحم موتانا اللهم ارحمنا إذا صرنا لما صاروا إليه. اللهم طهرهم من الذنوب والخطايا كما يطهر الثوب الأبيض من الدنس بالماء والثلج والبرد. اللهم اغفر لحينا وميتنا وشاهدنا وغائبنا وصغيرنا وكبيرنا وذكرنا وأنثانا. اللهم أحييته من نفاعه على الإيمان اللهم أحييته من نفاعه على الإسلام ومن توفيته منا فتوفاه على الإيمان. اللهم لا تحرمنا أجرهم ولا تفتنا بعدهم واختم بالصالحات أعمالنا يا عفو يا غفور يا رحيم. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار وقنا عذاب القبر وقنا فتنة المحيا والممات وقنا فتنة المسيح الدجال. ربنا آت نفوسنا تقواها وزكها أنت خير من زكاها أنت وليها مولاها. سبحانك وبحمدك عدد خلقك ورضا نفسك وزينة عرشك ومداد كلماتك. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. جزاكم الله خير. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. So this is session number 2. So I imagine we still have 2 more sessions.